Okay, 2 years ago we were facing that way. 1 year ago we were in the Carolina Theater, and on the way out we gave you popcorn, quite appropriately, apples and honey popcorn from the Mad Popper. And this year again we will give you apples and honey popcorn as a gift of sweetness for the new year. But we're in a new space, a new room, and it takes a little time to settle in and to focus and to offer our tefillot. So we'll take some time to get settled in and make ourselves at home so that we can do the work of the high holiday season. Our Torah reading this morning is on page 100 in the Machzor. It's going to begin in just a moment, and it begins with 3 words, Va'adonai pakad et Sarah. First, and I'm not going to go letter by letter through the whole thing, but it begins with a vav. And a vav connects it to what came before. Va'adonai, and God, pakad et Sarah, remembered Sarah. That word pakad, we could do a whole semester on that. But some of the commentators notice that usually if you want to use what's called the simple past, which means something that just happened, you would say vayifkod. Okay, what you do is you take the vav and then you put the future tense and it flips it in biblical Hebrew to the simple past. But this is a slightly different thing. It's pakad et Sarah. And so the rabbis read this word not as God remembered Sarah, but as God had remembered Sarah. God had remembered Sarah. It had already taken place. And when did this take place? According to Rashi, this comes to teach us, it took place because it comes to teach us the following lesson, that whoever prays for someone else, if you pray for someone else, if you need that same thing, then God will answer you first when you have prayed for someone else. And this is based on the fact that just before this chapter, there is a scene with God, with Avraham and King Abimelech. And I'm going to read to you a couple of the verses from the scene before. Then Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and also healed his wife and maidservants so that they bore children, for God had closed all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Abraham had passed off Sarah as his sister, and Abimelech had a dream about this and stopped himself, but there was a plague upon not only Abimelech, but upon all of the people in all of the maidservants in the kingdom. And so Avraham prays for Abimelech and others, and in doing that, according to Rashi, Sarah, who had been barren, is able to conceive. And that was when God had already remembered Sarah. I find it interesting that Sarai, or at that point, Sarah's ability to conceive, the first thing that we learn about Sarah, about Sarai, before even God calls to Abraham, we read a little genealogy, and the first thing that we learn is Sarai is barren, that she cannot conceive. And I find it interesting that for all of this time, according to Rashi, her ability to conceive has hinged upon and perhaps even been delayed or waited for Abraham to pray for someone else. And not only for someone else, but for a non-Jewish king who he was afraid would kill him. Abraham, it seems, according to Rashi, needed to learn not to be afraid. In order for Sarah to conceive, in order for God to remember her, he needed to learn not to be afraid that he could pray for others. One of the things we hope for today that we will pray for in the Musaf Amidah is for God to remember us. We say this over and over again. Zochrenu l'chayim. We pray for life. We plead for life. And in that sense, we are praying for ourselves, but perhaps there is a subtle or not so subtle message from the rabbis that in order for our prayers to be heard, we need to overcome our fears that others will hurt us, and we need to learn to pray beyond ourselves, to pray for others. Synagogues exist in a world of fee-for-services, not here, but we exist in a market economy where too often things are evaluated based upon what we receive when we pay for something. And synagogues and Judaism, I think, are countercultural because this place is based upon the idea that the deepest meanings of our lives can be found not in what we receive for when we give, but rather not in what we are owed, but in the debt that we owe. And that when we give to others, when we give to God, when we give to the Jewish people, when we give to our world, then our lives are deepened and given true life. Our tagline is Jewish life lived together. That's what's on our website. And each one of the tabs on the website invite us to learn with us and pray with us and be with us, and it's all based on the premise that life is better, that sorrows are lessened and joys are sweetened when we live together, when we give to each other, and when we contribute to the world which surrounds us. Our Torah reading begins page 100 in the Machzor.